Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I-Man here from the Block Runner MetaZone, Rovi and MScribe, and today we're going to be talking about the DMT sector. It's a whole sector now.
I thought it always has. It's always been a sector.
Well, we never talked about it as a sector, but it definitely is a sector.
Yeah, I've heard other people say it. It's like, hey, there's ordinals, and then there's DMT ordinals, as if it's like a separate classification. And there's definitely like very unique.
It's ordinals, except with density.
Or, ordinals that are not just, self-manifested, I guess. It's Bitcoin manifested.
They're arbitrarily generated?
Yeah, so there's some distinguishing differences between the two, I guess. But nonetheless, it's all under the same classification umbrella of an ordinal, right?
Correct.
This is why they both exist, they come to generate through inscriptions, right? This technology of ordinals that's been running for about 2 years now.
Right.
But yeah, the DMT ecosystem has a different flavor as far as interpretation of how to actually manifest these ordinal assets, right? In the arbitrary landscape of ordinals or NFTs in general, or just all crypto assets, you could just simply input a desired supply of things arbitrarily. Some human does that during like the minting interface or the mint deployment interface of like when you create these tokens, and that just is what it is, right?
Yeah.
That ends up being like the dynamic of this token. So in the non-arbitrary token landscape, we've injected a whole new arbiter, I guess, in this like outcome of token genesis, right? And we feel,
which is Bitcoin.
Yeah, I feel like it's the most powerful of arbiters.
It's the most interesting.
Yeah, it is the most interesting to us, and I think everybody this cycle will come to appreciate that, right? As Bitcoin clearly is like in like Superman mode. It just doesn't want to chill. I think right now it's like at 90K.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, so we're going to see a lot of people, their interest reigniting around Bitcoin. I'm already starting to get those messages. I don't know
so
if
did
you
I.
are.
We did.
Did you get some?
Yeah.
What did they say?
I mean, they called and
they called.
And then and I knew it. I called it out. They said they called.
It's like, I know why you're calling.
I know. Yeah. I told them, it's like, you're here to talk about Bitcoin, right? Like, yeah. You want to know if you should buy Bitcoin. They're like, yeah.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
You called them out on it, dude.
I did.
Did you like hang up immediately?
I was thinking about it. I was like, excuse me, but why didn't you call me when Bitcoin was at $15,000?
Right. Or how about like...
It's like, oh, because there's no money at the time. It's like, but you have money now, right? In the worst possible time.
Correct. Or it's like, how come you didn't call me, when I had a kid, dude? It's like, well, that wasn't important to me, It's like, but this Bitcoin thing is important to me, right? I need to know, how am I supposed to make money here, dude? So it's happening. It happened to me too. I'm getting some like inquiries.
Yeah.
People I haven't heard from in a long while and stuff. It's interesting, right? Dude, like all of a sudden for the next 12 months, we're the cool guys, dude.
Yeah, dude. And it's so predictable. Just like Bitcoin going up at this time, we predicted it.
Yeah. So we're the only ones who've been kind of like waiting for this, right? So to us, it's no surprise, even though it feels like surprising just to see it actually play out like every single time. Ultimately, it's still not a surprise. But to everybody else, like, how is this happening again, right?
Yeah.
Is it for real this time, guys?
Yeah.
Like, so it's interesting, right? So that it's happening. We're in the full bull market, and once these people who are reintroducing themselves into the crypto markets this time around, there's something nascent, something new that didn't exist last time, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Man, it's got to be a wild world for those newcomers coming in. It's like, I know Bitcoin, but, what is this ordinal thing? Like, why? How?
Exactly, yeah. What do you mean there's a metaverse on Bitcoin called Bitmap? What do you mean it's non-arbitrarily produced and, like, every block, a new, like, landscape is being generated that I could port into and, like, have a presence within? It's like, what do you mean?
Man,
that's not Bitcoin. Satoshi didn't put that in the white paper.
It's sort of like watching Breaking Bad for the first time.
Oh man,
such an experience, right?
I guess so. You're saying that all of us who've been collectively contributing over the last 2 years, we wrote the script for Breaking Bad, and everybody out there who's gonna get like introduced to this story, this plot.
Yeah,
it's gonna be like the greatest show ever, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you guys haven't seen Breaking Bad, you haven't seen the best show ever.
Yeah, imagine the guys who created it. They spent years and effort writing all that, and like, dude, this is a solid story. So I can't wait for people to like watch this.
Yeah.
Right? And then we did, and I almost failed my college courses because of that. I like totally dipped out of school just to watch Breaking Bad. So that's not like a recommendation. Don't drop out of school to like participate in Bitcoin's ecosystem. Actually, maybe it's not a bad idea, to be honest.
maybe wait for the next.
This might be the 12-month period to like not go to school, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like lock in fully on crypto. It's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Didn't Thread guy say that?
Everyone's saying that. If you have experience with it, because that's what I did in 2017. I wasn't in school, but I literally dropped all real life obligations.
Even WoW, dude.
That was the hardest one of all, dude. It wasn't sex or anything else, dude. It was WoW. That was the one that was the hardest to strip away, dude. But it's like, you know what? If I'm gonna make it in this like crypto world, I gotta lock in for real.
Sure.
Like literally lock in. I didn't leave my trading desk. Right, so here we are again, guys. We got 12 months of lock-in energy, right? So, all right, let's get into...
Yeah, so the first asset in the digital matter space is the very first, or one of the early digital matter assets is Bitmap.
Yeah.
And this is the sort of the entire history of Bitmap over the last year and a half or so. But right now, we want to focus on the last month, and it's on a little bit of resurgence.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is one of the things that people are going to come to discover again, right? A lot of these things originated a year to a year and a half ago as ordinals kind of began. We went through like an experimental phase, right? That's how, tokenized assets in general on Bitcoin kind of emerged, like BRC20s, TAP tokens, and then now like the new implementation non-fungibility with DMT assets, right?
Yeah.
Like, again, like a new flavor of that originated more than a year ago, right? So it's interesting to kind of keep an eye on that. It's like all these experiments, because there was a lot more than just this, right?
Yeah.
But it's the ones that did well during this experimental stage and are still around. This is the stuff you need to keep your eye on, right?
Yeah.
There's still active, vibrant communities there. There's still developers contributing to these things. These are the things that are going to capture like everyone's awareness in this like, next leg up.
I want to highlight the max chart here. As you see this huge spike here, we're predicting that Bitmap is likely to be an oscillator. So it's kind of hard to call something an oscillator before it actually oscillates.
True.
However,
you got to make the prediction nonetheless. Right?
Yeah, you got to make the prediction, and this is likely to be that. So this is like a potentially a forever asset that's always going to be part of like the crypto ecosystem. Just because it's like
by its nature.
By its nature, yeah. It's Bitcoin and it's...
Well, and it's the non-arbitrary nature of it is what guarantees that foreverness to it, right? Meaning as long as Bitcoin stays alive...
Pumping blocks?
Yeah, the Bitmap like ecosystem will expand with it, right?
Yeah.
So that whole non-arbitrary asset class is kind of like part of that new narrative, right? It's just the closest thing you can get as far as like sharing the value properties of Bitcoin. Right, as like a new digital asset class. So, yeah, this is first of its kind. Metaverse, as we know, it's going to be a multi-trillion-dollar space, just technology space in general within the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, factoring all that forecast and where we know Bitcoin is headed in general and, like, just meshed the two together, right? One of the most valuable, like, technology spaces and the most valuable asset on Earth.
Yeah.
You marry the two together.
It's perfect.
You got Bitmap, dude.
That's right.
It's a pretty powerful thesis, and people will easily kind of like come to grips with that, I think.
Yeah, and so here's an example of like kind of like a legacy sort of website in a sense, right? Gecko, like in the sense that it's all arbitrary tokens, and then now we have one of the early non-arbitrary tokens here. If you look at the total assets, it should be over 860,000. And so I don't know where they pull this number from, but it's not correct. So this number should match however many blocks of Bitcoin there is right now.
Yeah, but like you're saying, it's the legacy arbitrary world where
the total assets don't tend to change in the arbitrary world.
Yeah.
And so that's why this is stuck here.
Correct.
All right, moving on. All right, Desi.
So yeah, in light of this, so if you weren't around during the experimental stages, part of the experimental process is propagating new ideas and new methodologies of how to like achieve certain value adds to the ecosystem, right? So as a result of that, there's been a lot of combativeness within the community.
As just one would expect.
Yeah, I think that's actually an expected outcome, right? When you
Yeah, when you look at the history of Bitcoin,
Right.
like there's nothing but like
bickering,
and
a lot of maxi
infighting.
mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it still goes on to this day.
Yeah, still.
People just love to hate each other for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's like built in, dude.
Yeah, but the pups came in swooping in with a rolled piece vibe. Yeah, they really did. They're really about that rolled piece thing.
It's true.
It
checks out.
I thought it was actually a meme. Well, it is. But they're actually putting a meme into practice, which is actually pretty cool to see. They come in with like a very sensible take of like, here we are, us angelic pups. You guys are actually fucking idiots for fighting so much. Like, you guys need to like come to a unified agreement that we're all kind of like pushing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So this whole infighting stuff, it's only deterring like the optics of it all. Right?
That's true. I mean, think about it. Like a new person comes in, they're looking at bitmaps, and then they look it up on Twitter, and there's like, scammer this, scammer that, and be careful there. It's like, that's not really a good look.
Red alert.
Yeah.
Fucking marauders are coming for you guys. Like all that fucking like total dweeb shit, dude. It's like it's not a good look, guys.
It's not a good look, like just in general, but it's also like not even true. So
yeah,
that's even worse.
Yeah, so this is good. This is a good sign that like there's sensibility among this community, right? And it's the community is still very vibrant and strong. And again, this is what you want to look for is things that have emerged within the Bitcoin ecosystem, not just like once the bullish sentiment starts to enter the room, it's like all of a sudden these new things will start to pop up, right?
Yeah.
Those will largely be like the non-organic like participants
That's
of
true.
the ecosystem.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah, because we've seen this time and time again. As soon as the bull cycle starts, all these weird projects like spun out of thin air, and they have like 100,000 followers on Twitter. Like a new paradigm, like for the new person that comes in, new paradigm has achieved.
Yeah,
and like it's all fake, smoke and mirrors.
Pretty much, yeah. So you want to really do your due diligence and research and analyze the history of how things kind of originated when nobody was paying attention, right? And the fact that they're still around and still kicking, that's a good sign.
I mean, if you want to know the history of Bitmap, we have over 60 videos that chronologically went through the entire history from the start of Bitmap all the way to its blockout, and we still talk about it today. And it's been a whole year and a half and change.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, just go check out that playlist.
Yeah, it's a lot of hours.
So speaking of, so now that we're kind of like traversing, we're at that fine line between the experimental stage and what some would call, like ourselves, like actual execution and delivery of things, right? It's like where these theoretical concepts of building out virtual environments and digital economies and all these interesting things on like natively to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're actually starting to come to fruition.
Yeah,
right?
So Limitless here is showing the Bitmap Illuminati is coming.
All right.
It says only the worthy will enter, codes will be needed, and let's check out this video.
Okay. So this is Bitmap Emporium. So this is like one of the original Bitmap like cult communities that kind of spawned within, right?
Yeah.
So what are we looking at here, dude?
And so we're looking at what looks like a city with a bunch of logos and icons. There's Natcats. We're in there somewhere.
The block runner?
The block runner.
Where we at, dude? Where we at?
Right
there we are. Pause it, dude.
You want to pause it there?
Of course. We gotta like.
It's like it's backwards.
Doesn't matter. We gotta like soak it in, dude. We're in there. We're in the metaverse. So is the Natcats.
Cyberkongs.
And a whole bunch of others, right?
Yeah.
So what is this actually? So this is obviously like a conceptual vision of the metaverse, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So now let's start to get into like what is actually happening, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so
that comes with LDEs.
Yeah, the LDE here from Bitmap Emporium, it's been happening for maybe about a week and change, something like that. And so around 40 to 50% has already been inscribed.
What's an LDE, dude?
A land distribution event, obviously.
Not so obvious. Like, what do you mean you're distributing land? I thought Bitmaps already did that. Like,
yeah, so Bitmap is a district in the metaverse that is based off of a Bitcoin block.
Yeah.
Right? A district is all these squares combined, right? That's what's known as a district. And then the tiny squares are what is known as parcels. So these are based on the transactions of that block.
Yeah, so this is what we mean by non-arbitrarily produced, right? Each Bitcoin block, roughly every 10 minutes or so, another one of these is conjured up. So
yeah. And so what governs the sizes of each of these squares, for example, is the size of the individual transaction. So these tiny squares represent a very little amount of Bitcoin. And then these larger squares, it means more Bitcoin. And so there's like a threshold, and then all of a sudden you have like larger squares versus small squares.
Yeah. And typically in like Web3 metaverses past, again, just like arbitrary token creation, metaverses have been largely arbitrary as well, right? Meaning some human entity out there would just be like, yeah, I want a million squares.
Yeah.
And I'm going to like configure it however the hell I see fit, right? So it's like, yeah, we're doing things differently this time around, this new era of experimentation in the non-arbitrary like DMT space, right?
Yeah. So yeah, this is completely non-arbitrary. It's like you don't get to choose how many squares are in your block.
Yeah, Bitcoin does.
Bitcoin chooses.
Yeah. So that's what's cool about this. So again, so it's like, all right, so we have a layout, we have land distributed.
Yeah.
There's a community onboarding here into this this one bitmap that is now like a virtual ecosystem, right? So what does that look like, dude? I guess let's scroll down to this tweet thread. I think we can actually see some Natrix implementation.
Yeah, so Bitmap is leading the narrative for the metaverse, and unique features of Bitmap is that it's a block. And then here is, I guess, a community member has deployed a Bitmap Emporium content on top of a parcel in the Natrix, which is the metaverse that we created.
On another bitmap.
On another bitmap.
So it's utilizing the same like premise, right? Distributing land from within a bitmap. That is the utility of a bitmap.
That's right.
That's what we're unlocking at this execution stage, right? There's theoretical experimentation. That's what the last year was about. Now we're starting to identify like an actual product market fit.
That's right.
Like bitmaps have utility. You could leverage them as community tools. Right?
Yeah, and it's essentially like a development platform. So you can make applications, you can deploy those applications, you can sell those applications, and you get an entire ecosystem where you got landowners and creators and deployers and collaborators to like push content, right, for the metaverse.
Yeah, so these orange squares, these are the actual 3D virtualized parcels of a bitmap, and they're laid out just like as the bitmaps are. But so yeah, expect this in the Bitmap Emporium, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you know what you saw there, that virtual land is this 716472 bitmap, which is the Natrix. And so you can see here that many people have purchased parcels, and then they're creating content, as you saw in the previous tweet.
Yeah.
On top of these owned parcels.
So we'll probably see many more of these into the future. Different communities with different interpretations of how to like build out their own virtual space, right? Where they can collectively contribute towards that, and of course like vibe out with one another, et cetera, right? So our goal is to kind of like spread this technology and make it as accessible as possible, so it actually becomes like ubiquitous, right? It's like as ubiquitous as you need staking pools to provide liquidity for tokens, right? You're gonna need these these
primitives.
Yeah, these metaverse rendering technologies in order to even like build out anything sensible for your community.
That's correct. Yeah. Okay, so moving on, you know, digital matter is not just NFTs or non-fungible tokens. They're also fungible tokens, and you can see here that the DMT NAT, which is the first non-arbitrary token that is a fungible token from the DMT ecosystem, was released, and someone purchased $13,000 worth just recently.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, we put out last week, we had an interview with Benny, and we made a video about NAT, this whole minor subsidy crisis that's looming, and how the NAT token can be redirected, essentially, like the newly produced, because the NAT token, if you don't know, another non-arbitrary token, like Bitmap, and same concept, every single block, every 10 minutes, instead of a metaverse landscape being generated, there's a fungible token supply rooted to an on-chain data component, right?
Called the bits field.
Yeah, so every block has a bits value, right? And so that is where the fungible token supply is derived.
Yeah.
So there's some interesting dynamics and properties to that alone, which can be discussed in other videos, but nonetheless, the new value proposition is, all right, we've achieved the block out, and you know we can direct these new mints directly to the winners of the block reward.
That's exactly right. So what does that do? It essentially allows miners to increase the security of Bitcoin post the subsidy elimination in 2140.
Yeah, so if you've been in our Discord, there's been a lot of discussion around this. I'd say it's like 97%.
I would say 99%, dude.
I've seen like 2 or 3 who was like, I'm not jigging with this idea.
All right, 98%. Dude.
I'm not getting jiggy with it, dude. If they were like from the 90s,
Okay, Will Smith.
That's right. Yeah, nobody says that anymore. But yeah, so it's like 97 to 99% people are in favor of it. They think it's a good idea, and I tend to agree.
Yeah, I don't see another solution. I mean, unless you think that people are going to degen all day, every day for the entire history of Bitcoin to support the security of Bitcoin. If you think that's going to happen, then yeah, that is a solution.
Yeah, they'll have periodic, of course. That's why we're all building this ecosystem of Bitcoin, is to achieve that, right?
Yeah, but is that really sustainable, like, all the time? Like
all the time?
All of the time.
Not all. There are going to be down periods, of course.
Right. That's where the issue is.
Yeah, so we've got to figure out something that contributes
a little bit more sustainably
and perpetually, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. Even in the downtime. So it makes a lot of sense, and it gives like the NAT token itself like a new mission premise that again aligns things as close to Bitcoin as possible, because as we're explaining in this asset class of ordinals, everything that's manifested depends on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Not some human arbiter.
That's right. Yeah, and so we're talking about DMT fungible tokens, but what about DMT non-fungible tokens like a NatCat? So NatCats are up almost 50%.
Yeah. So again, another indication that NatCats were deployed almost a year ago, maybe like 8 or 9 months ago. Obviously massive.
That's so true. It feels like so long ago.
I know, but it was a massive like introduction to the market, right? Whenever NatCats were born, these things were free minted. There was like an OTC mania happening where they were being traded on Excel spreadsheets on Discord.
This was a 10,000% return, by the way.
Yeah, if you were able to mint these, like this was probably one of the bigger like W's of like the experimental stage of the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Yeah.
And here we are. The community is still as big as ever. The energy is as vibrant as ever. People understand the value premise of this asset, right? It's potentially the crypto punk of this Bitcoin ecosystem. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's introducing like a new meta to non-fungibility, the way crypto punks did.
That's right.
Right? Crypto punks were like the originator concept, I guess, of like 10K uniqueness, and it's not in its tokenized form, right?
Yeah.
We had like a $60 billion NFT mania of like trying to replicate that, trying to recapture lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
NatCats represents that same premise, right? It's like these are the first iterations of assets that Bitcoin's ever produced from like an NFT PFP collection perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, so how are these generated? It's a script that is embedded within Bitcoin's blockchain, and then the mints take that script and generate a cat.
Right.
And it's really one of the coolest things that are happening on Bitcoin.
Yeah. So again, all this, we've been talking about this stuff for the last year and a half or so. So revisit our old content. We're going to keep talking about this stuff for sure.
Yeah.
Because more things are happening. And by the way, this 1 year is 8 days away. 1 year anniversary, I guess.
Don't remind me, dude.
Dude, how do you not like
there's so much work to do.
I know. But that's the point. Is like, let's take pause for like a minute, maybe like a couple hours. And like, let's reflect on all the crazy shit that has been done in 1 year, dude.
It's a lot.
It has been a lot, right? So literally a year ago, 8 days from now, we would have released the DMT Gitbook and NAT, the token itself.
Correct.
So yeah, let's so congratulations to everybody.
Celebrate.
Let's celebrate, dude.
Yeah.
In the metaverse.
So yeah, that's going to happen potentially November 20th. So stay tuned. Potentially, I said.
Has to happen November 20th, dude. Everybody like
you heard it here.
Shame will. There's no potentially, dude. It must be
the
done.
Probability is there that it's November 20th.
Dude, there is no. You cannot
Move the date?
Yeah, it's 100% fixed. That is the 1 year anniversary.
Well, the event has a high probability on happening on that day.
That's true. So we don't necessarily have to like boogie down on that like fixed date is what you're saying.
Right.
We can like boogie
the next day or something.
Yeah, depending on technical difficulties, I guess. Running a metaverse event for the first time.
That's right. All right, that's it for us. We covered everything in Bitmap and DMT. If there are any questions, I know there might be a lot. Definitely let us know in the comment section below. Also, join our Discord, follow our Twitter for more alpha. And appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.
Peace.